y'all, I'm Ellen. We've been super inspired by our journeys of self-healing and discovery.
And I'm Sam, and we want to share our experiences with you to help you get curious about yourself, reconnect, and get intentional about your life so you know what makes you happy.
Welcome to Woo New, the podcast. Welcome back to Woo New. We are really excited to be talking to Flo, who is the creator of Experience Flow State. Experience Flow State is basically a classic psychedelic microdose company that sits in that gray space between the scientific and the shamanic. And just full disclosure, Flo is a pseudonym that we're using to obviously protect everyone involved. So welcome, Flo.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Sam. Super excited to be on this podcast. This is actually our first foray into speaking, a little bit above board. So I'm really happy it's with you. And excited to share our learnings and hopefully your audience will be inspired and also will provide good information for them.
Oh my gosh, Ellen has told me just nothing but such incredible things about everything that you are working on, and I am so excited to have this conversation today. It couldn't come at a more perfect time.
I know, seriously. I feel like, just thank you so much beforehand for just being so open and willing to have this conversation, because I know that with legality and all that kind of stuff, it gets a little bit dicey, and there's not that many people who would be willing to, be so open about what they're working on, sort of, not behind the scenes, but just basically in the current state that we're finding ourselves in right now, pre-legalization.
Well, you're a part of our community, Elle, and it's about trust, and it's about having that safe space. So thank you so much for providing that safe space.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just start right at the beginning. Can you explain what Experience Flow State is and what inspired y'all to create this offering?
So we named our brand Experience Flow State to kind of reflect that concept of flow state, which is that fluidity that you have between your body and your mind when you're completely engrossed with what you're doing. So without any distraction, it's almost like a childlike focus. When you see kids building a sandcastle or totally absorbed by their playtime, we believe that that is something that adult humans can also achieve. So that's what we named our brand Flow State. We wanted to provide tools that can allow access to that state of mind. And we created, Flow State was born officially Christmas of 2019. And that was a bit of a reaction from the correction that happened in the cannabis space in Q4 of 2019.
What happened then?
So a lot of things went upside down. Cannabis, also another new industry. There was a lot of money that came in. There was a lot of reactionary decisions. And what we found is a lot of companies went under. A lot of folks that had different intentions of what plant medicine should be, specifically, money oriented, kind of just threw the market into a bit of a tizzy. And essentially my partner and I are both in the cannabis space, touching different things. And we were just like, this is not how we envision companies being run for honoring the plant. So Flow State is kind of our company baby. We are trying to do things that we believe honors the plant, honors the people. And we wanted to do something that we believed in. And this is, we created Flow State.
Beautiful. Can you talk a little bit about just how you got into the cannabis industry? I'm assuming that that's sort of your entry point into psychedelics, now that I consider cannabis a psychedelic, which it very much is.
Yeah, and also just to add on to that quickly, do you use is cannabis one of the tools that you offer through Experience Flow State?
No, cannabis is not because
Okay.
there's different markets that have a lot of that already. We work within different markets. So my entry point into all of plant medicine, I guess, is a little bit different than most. I am a first generation immigrant. So my parents came from northern China and brought me along with them in the 80s to all places, Oregon, a little like utopian hippie mecca in Oregon. And then they had no idea what Americans were like. So when we landed there, the people that took care of us, the ESL teachers, the acclimators, my babysitters were all folks that um, were cannabis growers, were cannabis consumers, were crystal healers, were yoga teachers. So my parents were just like, oh, wow, these people use herbs. And these people come to Tai Chi with us on Saturdays. So and they're helping us. So that just became part of my community growing up. I guess since the age of 5, I've always had plant medicine people around me. And I guess that's been kind of my foray into cannabis and other plant medicines because it's just always been part of the community that I was raised in. When I was curious about consuming cannabis, it was my aunt who procured for me when I was 13. When I was curious about psychedelics, it was my uncle who procured and sat for me when I was 15. So I've had a little bit of a different, I guess, interaction with plant medicine and taking it than most. But those experiences have just kind of carried with me. And came into the legal cannabis space around 2016, specifically around extraction and processing and machines.
Wow. So your first experience with these plant medicines, you had like a more um, formal sitter with you in all of those experiences, or did you try them more recreationally as well at that time?
Well, my first experiences was with family. So their main concern was just do you have good product and
Hmm.
are you in a safe environment? So I think I really commend my aunt and my uncle for stepping up and just wanting to make sure that um, I was in a safe space. I've become that person. Like I call it like the Sherpa for a lot of my friends and a lot of my family actually. So yeah, it's been a really awesome experience to have, which is I wish like more people could have that experience.
Yeah.
Seriously. I mean, I just feel like you were raised with this appreciation and, a respect for plant medicine so young, and it was part of your, like, I don't know, your formative years and sort of part of the fabric in which you kind of were, just nurtured. That's so rare because I feel like also speaking as an Asian woman and also, child of immigrants, like, that is so rare too because my
Mhm.
mom thinks of cannabis and she's like I literally had a conversation with her just last week about holding cannabis psychedelic journeys, and she's like, "Wait, you mean you smoke pot?" And she said it just like that. It cracked me up because that's her war on drugs. That's what she grew up with. And so it was really funny. I'm like, it was almost like so innocent that I had to laugh. I'm like, yeah, well, when you use it in a ceremonial and therapeutic space, it becomes like medicine. It's so I
And
like
then
break it down for her.
Well, and then to your point, Sam, once I got out of when I went to college and was a young adult, I did experiment on my own. Maybe the intention back there then was not the same intention now. But experimentation is something that people do. And I think being able to experiment, knowing that you have clean product and being in a safe space is just really important.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really powerful experience to have so young to, be able to explore both avenues because, it wasn't really even until very recently that Alan and I started really our psychedelic journeys and in so many ways, I'm like, I can't believe nobody talks about these things.
Yeah,
I think that's one of kind of maybe the pitfalls that happened with, the first wave of psychedelics, um, and why it became so demonized. There wasn't a lot of elders in place. There wasn't a lot of people that taught or, guided. It was kind of a free for all. So I think that's one of the things I hope that you guys are partaking in as guides and teachers. And I hope that there's more of that in this kind of resurgence of psychedelics and experimentation.
absolutely. How did your cannabis journey, like your exploration with cannabis, getting into that industry, how did it lead you to work with psilocybin? Or did it?
It did a lot. So my partner, who's also my life partner, or became my life partner during COVID. We both met in the cannabis space, and we had shared a common ethos of what we think cannabis industry should be. And we took our learnings from a lot of the issues that come in cannabis to create this brand. So things that we really wanted to do is, help destigmatize. So we wanted everything to be approachable. So we took great care with our branding and packaging. We purposely wanted our products to look like beauty products, that could be bought at Sephora, because it's important to build confidence and destigmatize. We also, want to make sure to use quality containers. So all of our glass is, amber glass. They're recyclable. They're used to protect our product as well. And then our secondary packaging is used to protect the glass, and it also helps with temperature control. But the other part that was really important that we learned from cannabis is, people are new to this. This is an opportunity to educate. This is an opportunity to answer questions. This is an opportunity to share and learn. So it's really important. We have a conversation with everyone that we work with. So it's just really important that the things that we're learning from cannabis, which is specifically about how to communicate and how to educate and how to learn ourselves and do better, have a lot of parallels with cannabis.
I'm curious why you chose to step into a completely different plant medicine like psilocybin mushrooms rather than creating, let's say, another cannabis brand that would stand for the ethos that you were talking about.
So the cannabis industry is probably going to be operating from a very fear-based mindset for a while, a little bit of
Mhm,
scarcity mindset. And it was actually a good friend of mine who called me on Christmas of 2019, who basically, got out of cannabis about 9 years ago. As
mm,
soon as it went legal, they basically said, I'm out. And they've been involved in the cannabis game for about 25 years. And he transitioned into psychedelics, and has been, kind of whispering to me for the past 9 years about moving into the psychedelic space. And he was like, hey, everyone that I'm, interacting with in the psychedelic space, it's different. People are trying to be better,
mm,
whatever that means. People are trying to look at things from a different perspective. People are trying to explore what it means to be themselves and humans. And he was like, I really want you to maybe consider going to that space. I love you, and I prefer that you are working in that type of environment than the scarcity mindset that's happening in cannabis.
mhm,
And now there's a lot of things. I still believe in the cannabis industry. I'm still involved in the cannabis industry. There's just been a lot of rules and regulations and limitations that have been happening in the cannabis space. And I've been making capsules for about 6 years now. And I've been sharing them with friends and family, and have been getting really great responses and feedback. And on that same night, for Christmas, my partner actually called me and was super excited because he had given some of my capsules to his father, and had seen a complete 180 in terms of energy and spirit shift. So it was, those two conversations that happened on Christmas 2019 that I started the designing the brand.
Wow,
Wow.
that's so cool. I wonder what it was about microdosing in particular that got you interested in exploring that space.
So I'm allergic to alcohol. So I've always had different types of other things to try. And what happened for me where I discovered microdosing was about years ago. I had a really important person in my life get sick. And, she was an amazing personality, an artist. She was in her mid 70s, an amazing actress, amazing musician, just such a Renaissance woman. And as she got older, she developed COPD. And what would happen is they also discovered a tear in her aorta. So she would, start not being able to breathe, get very anxious. Her heart would start, palpitating. She would have to go into the emergency room. They would have to intubate her. And this was going on for about a year and a half. And then her daughter and her asked me to start researching other plant medicine that she could take because the doctor's solution to control all of that was to give her Xanax.
Mm.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
and as Western medicine does. And, she took Xanax for about 2 weeks. And, her daughter was very concerned because she became very lethargic and very depressed because her spirit was just not there anymore. So they both asked me to start researching other alternatives. So I started making cannabis capsules for her because she's a big fan of smoking cannabis, but because of COPD, she hadn't in a very long time. So I started making cannabis capsules for her. At the same time, that's when I discovered Dr. James Fadiman's book, The Psychedelic Explorer's Guide. And as you know, he's, the godfather of microdosing. So I'm always experimenting with things. So I started making my own capsules. And when my friends would do their, dry January, I would do a psilocybin reset for either, Western New Year or Lunar New Year.
Oh,
And
that's so cool.
and then my friend who was whispering about the psychedelics, I would get, source from him. He would be very generous. So I would have all this extra and I would just give to friends. And that's how, I started making this.
I love how it's like every, origin story always starts in the kitchen when it comes to, it's like you do it for your friends and your family first, and then you suddenly realize like, "Wow, this is so beneficial and helpful," like the world could really benefit from this. Um What was your relationship with psilocybin at that point? Like, had you been doing big heroic journeys for a really long time before you started microdosing or was microdosing really almost kind of your first real entry point into psilocybin?
So no, I mean, I did my first trip dose. I believe that was 3.5 grams when I was 15.
Mm.
And I was a full eighth and just went into another dimension. And it was great. My uncle had, music playing for me. So, that was the first time I really saw music in a three-dimensional way.
Oh, so
Um,
cool.
yeah, it was really transformative. It really solidified for me that um, there's so many things that we can't see that exist. I
Mhm.
have a very scientific brain, and I couldn't but I was born with this kind of knowledge that there are things there, but I couldn't really rationalize the two worlds. And it wasn't until my same aunt, when I was 13, she gave me a book called Cave of the Ancients. It's a Buddhist book written by a Buddhist monk called Tuesday Lobsang. And the whole book is the concept that everything has a vibration, everything vibrates at a specific frequency, and depending on your frequency, you can see things or not. And
You were reading this at 15?
Yeah.
I was 13. She
Wow.
was a really great just influence. Anything I was curious about, she fed that to me.
Wow.
So that book just kind of just made sense of everything to me, the scientific part that, oh, everything is, energy and frequency. And the spiritual part, like, yes, things vibrate at certain speeds, and depending on if you're tuned or not, you can see them or you don't. So that also kind of carried into our logo. If you see our logo, our mark is vibrational waves. So we very much believe that everything has a vibration, and these are actual tools that can help attune your vibration. They can help amplify out the vibration. They can magnetize frequencies that are similar back. So that's kind of like, I guess, the long way of kind of describing what we believe in and how these tools can affect you.
I'm just like floored. First of all, I wanna hang out with your family.
I know.
Second, damn, what I mean, to be exposed to these types of ideas at such a young age, and also this type of experience, like this psychonautical experience at such a young age too, like, wow, I it's this is your calling. I mean, it's, there's, like, no
Mm.
question. This is what you came into this body, into this lifetime to do.
Yeah.
Like, it's really beautiful to kind of, like, see step by step, how your journey has sort of unfolded.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic because, I ran away screaming from when you're a kid, I was reading things about New York and all of these other big cities, and I was, very much in this smaller, city with a very specific mindset from everyone that was there, and I wanted to, you know, im- get out and look at the world and learn new things. And now I'm like, okay, I'm like the prodigal daughter that's returned, and all the things that I may have taken for granted, the Chinese medicine, the different types of healing modalities, it's just really, I'm so appreciative of it now.
Man, like, there's, like, a bazillion questions exploding out of my head right now. What did you notice first and foremost when you began microdosing
Mm.
for yourself?
Ooh, good question. I definitely had more conversations with myself. Like, I'd say I'd have had definitely more conversations with my intuitive, voice.
Mhm.
Um, the other voices that sometimes get in the way, your brain, the echoes of learnings from your existence, from other influences, just kind of dissipated. And I could actually really hear the things that I was needing. Whether it was, hey, you really need to address this physical thing that's happening with your body. It was like screaming. Or, hey, these things that you packed away that you thought you never had to deal with, they came screaming out to be acknowledged, to be understood. And I would say my intuition has the loudest voice, and I'm listening to it in terms of making decisions.
That's so profound. I when you take the microdoses, do you take them with an intention each time, or do you just take it and let the medicine flow through your body and what comes is meant to come?
I think you can do it both ways. We are a big proponent of, having an intention when you start. Um, just because, like I said, we believe that thoughts have vibrational frequencies. And, having something that you can focus on, having something that you can compare to is a really great thing. You can kind of do this check with yourself, like, how am I physically reacting? How am I mentally reacting? How is my spirit reacting to this? I think it gives a nice guidepost for you to kind of focus on.
So, first of all, I love your microdoses, like, I kinda I think when I first did it, I did a full protocol, and I definitely wanna get into, like, the protocol that you guys use. Um, what I love about your microdoses is that, they have really helped me to deepen my meditative practice
Mhm.
and connect to the energy that's around me, particularly the energy of Mother Earth. Um, and I use it now as a tool for me to really connect in. And so, I don't take them often, like, I take maybe 1 a week on average, but I know I always pick a day when I, want to really drop in and I have the space to be able to really, like, drop in and listen, like, it's not a day where I have a lot of shit to do. I pick a day specifically where it's really light, I may have 0 expectations on that day, and I just allow myself to feel. Um I'm curious. Like, let's get into the whole microdosing thing. Like,
Mhm.
what kind of microdoses do you guys offer right now?
So we stick to the classics. So we have two products right now, specifically for microdosing. We have psilocybin mushrooms and we have LSD. And we follow the 1/10 of a standard trip dose. So our psilocybin mushrooms in the whole jar is 2.5 grams, which is a standard trip dose. And then we've created 10 capsules out of that. So each vegan capsule, we're kosher and halal friendly. We have 250 milligrams in there. And then our LSD, there's 100 micrograms in each bottle. And then each full dropper is 10 micrograms.
And what kind of psilocybin mushrooms do you offer currently in the microdose?
So we have 4 different strains for microdosing. We have Mazatepex, which is a really beautiful. It's one of the native indigenous strains that Maria Sabina introduced to the West. We have Golden Teachers. I think very many people are familiar with Golden Teachers. It's a very gentle, nice, like easy one to get into. And then we also have the Avery's Albino, which I am currently in love with, and the Albino A plus. And we also have another strain that's not really micro, but it's Albino Penis Envy. We call them apes.
I love it. And then for your, the LSD, how is that, I guess, not created, but served up?
So we are single ingredient with everything. So for example, with the LSD, we get it in a crystalline form. We add a little bit of ethanol alcohol, and the rest is distilled water. It's really important that I can take our product, so I'm allergic to alcohol, and I needed to make something that I could take. And then also, I found with a lot of tinctures, there's flavor and things that can influence effect. And then also, having a strong ethanol base is not something that is that appealing. We found that there's a lot of people that come to us are trying to get off of something, and having a strong alcohol base is just
Mm,
a trigger that doesn't need to be there.
Yeah.
We try to be, we very much believe in being single ingredient. There's other groups that are doing mixes, which I think is great. But for us, if someone is having a reaction, positive or negative, we want to make sure that we know what's causing it. And the more ingredients you have, effects and reactions can get blurry as to what the source is.
okay. Is there a reason why somebody would do a psilocybin microdose over LSD? Like, how
How
do
are they
you,
different?
yeah, exactly. And really, I guess, how are all the different strains of psilocybin mushroom different? Like, if I wanted, like, taking me for example, like somebody who wants to really um, connect in with themselves and like sort of use it almost like as a meditation tool, like which strain would you recommend and why?
So, let's see. I can talk about the feedback that we're getting from people, because what we do is normally kind of a conversation, understanding of why people get into it, and then post journey we'll do kind of like a summary. of
Mm,
attributes. So what we found specifically with the strains that we have right now is the Golden Teacher and Mazatepec are similar. There's a lot of introspection, reflection, grounding, kind of awareness and emotional clearing that comes from both. So I'd say if you wanted to go in deep internally, I would say the Golden Teacher and Mazatepecs are really great for that. What's interesting about the A plus and the albino is we feel that, or sorry, albino A plus and the Avery, is that we're hearing that a lot of people are having more external energy, almost similar to LSD. So
Mm.
the A plus is almost like a sensory enhancement. So physical awareness, creativity, energy, and flow are things that have been reported. And what I mean by sensory enhancement is, visually, things are, wow, like an artist has mentioned, I just mixed a pigment color that I never thought I would use, but it's like really vibrant to me. So I'm going to be, you know, using it in my next series. Or a musician is like, oh wow, I never heard that sound before, but that's something I want to experiment with my loop. Or, we do have martial artists who are like, when I'm using the microdose, I can almost sense the movement of an opponent. So,
wow.
so to me, that's more of a sensory enhancement. And then the Averys almost feel like LSD to me, microdose to me. It's a lot of focus and clarity and motivational energy.
Mhm.
And I'm going to say that, a lot of people think that the mushroom microdose and the LSD microdose feel the same. I'm going to, say that's not the case. With I guess I would kind of, if I could brand the two, the mushrooms are going to be more yin energy. It's
Mm.
almost like internal, grounding, kind of having those conversations with yourself, clearing the space to kind of create a game plan of understanding of what you want your next, phase to be. And then the LSD is definitely more of a yang energy. It's external energy, it's physical energy, it's a lot of it's almost like a clean energy source. I also
Mm.
think it's very cosmic meaning that, for example, some of my friends were very nervous about taking the LSD because LSD has been, a little bit demonized. You always heard that high school story of the guy that took 10 hits and just went crazy. So people were a little bit nervous, but there was 8 of us who did the LSD tincture together. And it was pretty amazing because the moments, those moments when like you think about someone and they call or text, there were
Mhm.
so many of those moments. So I feel like it's definitely an amplifier of external like frequency that you're looking for, and calling to the universe or the multiverse or your spirits to kind of bring that back.
I love how you describe that because I'm so hypersensitive to energy. So whenever I go on a journey, I very much feel exactly what you're talking about in the sense that like if I'm doing a journey with mushrooms, it's like energy that's coming from inside of me and it's flowing outwards and I'm connecting to things in new ways. Whereas when it's LSD, it is very much like I am fully connected to the quantum and I can feel
Yeah.
movements in places like that I can't even see. Like it's very much like that. It's a really cool way of explaining it. So thank you for sharing that with me because I was struggling to put words to it.
Awesome. Yeah. Like I think I love both, and just in, being involved in this and just giving yourself the time to get to know these tools and also letting them get to know you. You really get to fully understand how they can be tools for you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, they're both incredible, but they are like if you're sensitive to energy, they are very different.
Mm. Do you, like, so since we're talking about strains and things like that, and, Flo, you've heard me say this before, um, when I tried it wasn't in a microdose form, but when I tried the apes, the albino penis envy, what I the experience I received was a very external, as you were describing it. It literally felt like I was taking MDMA,
Yes.
and and I I was shocked. I was like, I mean, shocked in a really pleasant way. I was like not expecting that, but and I did it basically to celebrate. My partner and I always have like a psilocybin trip on our anniversary, and so that was our anniversary trip just this past March, early March. And yeah, I felt like I was rolling, and then there was definitely a little bit of that teeth grinding happening. So I was floored. And yeah, like I'm curious if that is how you have been describing that particular strain to people.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say you're not the only one that has given feedback that it feels like MDMA. One, like my spiritual healer here in Mexico, we gave him some, and he's an older gentleman, and he was like, "Those feel like MDMA from the '80s," and I was like,
Wow. Those are magic.
yeah. So there were, it was a surprise for us too. When we took it for R&D, I was like, whoa, this is some really intense, like, intense energy out. And
Yeah.
and then it does have that heart opener, that, physical MDMA feeling. But for me, what was really crazy was when I closed my eyes, I can access the DMT portals. Everything
Wow.
visually is
What?
aligned with DMT. So my mentor, my mentor is the grower, and mentioned to me how special this strain is, and I really, I was like, okay, cool, um, but after experimenting with it, I was like, oh my goodness, it's a completely different strain than I've ever experienced, and I think most people have experienced.
Yeah, and, I really believe that, I mean, to full transparency, I had maybe 3 or 4 different packs of, your product, Happy Path, and I didn't know which one I grabbed when we first made the tea, and so, like, I wasn't intentionally doing the apes just to try them or anything like that, but when I felt it and had the experience, what I realized was that that kind of experience was exactly what I want or what I needed, to experience. It was purely just joy and euphoria. And it wasn't that, because I've had, pretty intense trips on some of your other happy path mushrooms where I've, kind of gone in and, excavated a lot of stuff. And, it was a lot of, it was a very different kind of trip. But this time I think, it's like the universe knew what I needed was just to have fun and to feel that beautiful euphoric joy and connection with my partner. It's like what better mushroom to do on an anniversary trip than apes,
Yeah, so magical.
Happy anniversary.
It's so awesome. I have a whole new respect for that particular strain. Um, what is the protocol? Do you mind, like, kind of going through the microdosing protocol that you guys ascribe to? And I think you kind of loosely touched on it, but, it's based off of Fadiman's teachings, correct?
Yeah, there's two main protocols that, are followed, right? There's the James Fadiman protocol, and then there's the Paul Stamets protocol. So James Fadiman protocol is 1 day on, 2 days off. So if you take your first dose on Monday, you take your next dose on Thursday. So the whole idea with that is, day one you take your dose, and you may or may not feel a physical onset. I think one thing to really clarify is, we're so used to having a drink or taking a pill or smoking weed where there's an immediate physical onset. I'd say like 70% of people may feel a physical onset of, vibration or frequency. 30% may not. So the whole idea is, day one, it's in your system, and you feel it. or you maybe feel it in an emotional way, or it could be a spiritual way. Day two, there's still a little bit of remnant in your body. It's called the afterglow day. You may still feel some remnants of it in your system. And then day three, you come back, it's out of your system, you come back to baseline. So the whole idea is within these 30 days, you take 10 doses. And you're going to take these, when you take your doses, you're going to be in different scenarios. Maybe it's the weekend when you're with your family. Maybe it's at work. Maybe it's X, Y, and Z. So the whole idea is, I'd say like think of it almost like a research project on yourself. In these 30 days, you're going to be taking your dose in different scenarios. You're really going to understand after 30 days in those different scenarios, in different, settings, how this can be a tool for you. You're going to know how it affects you physically, mentally, spiritually, psychically. You're your best teacher. So it's the whole idea is after 30 days, you can incorporate this as a tool in your lifestyle. And that's what I love. Like Ellen, you basically said, hey, I've learned that I like to do this once a week. That's awesome. And we never say that there's rules to this because this is so new and everyone is different. So we say, hey, here are some guidelines. The James Fadiman protocol is a guideline. It's for you to become comfortable with it. It's important for you to, have a baseline understanding of how these things affect you. And then if you want to experiment, that's totally up to you. We have some people that take the product at night. I like to do that sometimes when I'm trying to like understand my dreams. I have some people that do it every other day. We have some people that alternate. So, once you have this 30 days of understanding, we do encourage people to experiment and see how it can be optimally used in your life.
Can we go back to that taking it at night to see what your dreams mean?
Yeah.
I never even considered that. Like, holy shit. How okay, tell us everything.
Yeah, so, what was really kinda cool, another serendipitous moment was, I have another spiritual healer mentor, that I met, who was doing flower essences with another psychedelic called datura. And datura is known by many names. It is one of the three psychedelics that is prevalent in Mexico. So it's peyote, psilocybin, and datura. And datura is, there's all these legends. It's another one of those plants, like I think in the Caribbean, it's used to make the powder that makes zombies. It's called the devil's vine. It's called all of these different things. But my spiritual mentor was made a flower essence, and we microdosed that for about 30 days, and it just released these dream state. It was like so vivid, like dreams that you have as a kid, you know? And I've been trying to explore lucid dreaming because there's just so many things happening. So I started trying to see if I could do some lucid dreaming using psilocybin. So I've been taking my dose at night.
Wow.
Wow. Have you noticed a big difference?
Um, I'm trying, like, there's moments when I know I'm there, but I'm trying to move in there, if that makes any sense. I'm trying
Yeah.
to trying to be conscious and I know that I'm there. I'm dreaming, but now I'm trying to see if I can like move around based on what I want to do versus what the dream.
That's fascinating. Okay, you're giving me a new, psychonautical project to do. That's so rad.
So, in the psilocybin capsules, are you measuring out specifically the amount of psilocybin in each capsule, or is the weight referring to the mushroom itself?
It's the weight of the mushroom itself.
Okay.
So, we have been talking to a group that's doing psilocybin and psilocin testing for different strains that you can submit. So that's something that we're looking forward to in the future. but there isn't a total protocol with that yet. But that's something we definitely want to focus on coming up.
Okay, this is a totally random question. So I apologize for taking us off track for a minute, but I feel like you're probably going to have a really good answer, which is so so often I know people who have taken mushrooms or taken mushrooms out of the same batch as someone else and not had or felt any of the effects regardless of the dosage. And I'm curious if you know why sometimes that can happen and what it might mean.
I think a couple of things can come into consideration. Like psychedelics are, the only thing that's not really body weight or mass influenced.
Mhm.
It's very much, I think, brain chemistry. So it could be that somebody is on an SSRI or other medication that is kind of obstructing any of those influences. I also do have one friend. He's amazing, and nothing works on him. And he's complete. He has no. He's not on any type of medication. He's tried everything. He's tried acid. He's tried DMT. He's tried psilocybin
Wow.
mushrooms. He's tried MDMA. Nothing works on him. So the joke that we have is, "Wow, you're just so enlightened that you're the perfect person. You don't need any substances."
Well, yeah, I
So
remember I read Graham Hancock's Supernatural, and that's he takes all of the psychedelics and he talks about his experiences with each and then compares it the different shamanic journeys. And um, at the end he doesn't tell you what happens with his second psilocybin journey, but he ends up doing like 13 and a half grams or something because the first
geez,
one he took so
Holy,
many and
that's
had no effects.
wow.
Yeah, and
wow.
I'm like, "How does this happen to people?" Because I'm telling you, man, I got like 2 and a half, 3 grams in me one time, and I was like, "I am literally don't even know where my body is."
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy at 2 grams. Like I did a lot of the melting mind stuff, I think in my 20s where, you're with your friends and, I hung out with a lot of dudes and it was like, well, how much can you take? How much can you handle? And I had a lot of those, went to a lot of dead shows, had some really crazy trips. And, now that I'm a different age, I'm happy with 2 grams. It's perfect, but I don't know if I could handle 2 grams of the apes. I don't even know what that would do.
I think I did, it was half a pack, so it was what, 1.7?
Oh,
1.7.
did Adam do the other half? So
Yeah,
that's all
yeah,
you guys did.
yeah,
Whoa.
yeah.
Whoa.
It was plenty for me, I might just, out of my own sort of, like, curiosity, just do a full pack one day and just
Yeah,
see
let me
what
know.
happens. I will, I'll report
Yeah,
Oh
back.
my
let me
gosh,
know because
I'm getting on this bandwagon here, guys. I can't wait to try this.
For sure. One of the things that struck me also with the way you guys make your products, like the way you cap and everything is I remember you once telling me a story of how the batch I think that I was about to purchase at the time were capped in Mount Shasta or
yeah.
somewhere that had really amazing energy. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's what I also found really beautiful about the just the thoughtfulness and consciousness about energy and how you are creating these products.
Yeah, that was like pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So pre-COVID, again, we think these things, these tools, these ingredients, these plants have frequency. So, we want to amplify these things as well. So it was just really important for us to, try to add kind of extra energy. So we would, we'd go to Mount Shasta, we would go to the redwoods and hike and cap. We would go to beaches where we felt really, special energy. So that was part of it before COVID. Now I'm trying to add extra universal Reiki energy in there until we're able to be mobile. But that's just really important. And this is something that our supply chain is so tight. It's my mentor who grows. They're grown in lab. In lab, meaning laboratory conditions, sterile, temperature, humidity control, organic substrate, grown with love, hand trimmed. And if you look at the whole mushrooms, you see that there's like a little rounded bottom. So there's a lot of love with there. I'll just leave it that our LSD comes from a very well known lab. I'll just leave it at that. Um, but the only people that touch it after we get the source ingredient is my partner and I. We put our intention in there. We put, this is our passion project. So we do everything. We grind, we cap, we sticker, we we just do everything, and that is our labor of love, and I hope that comes through.
It 1,000% does. And again, thank you for just taking the process of it so seriously and so
Yeah.
thoughtfully, you know? Because I don't think you get that. Well, first of all, you definitely don't get that with a mass-produced anything, but, like, I don't know, it's so part of what plant medicine is all about, and the mushroom, I just feel like there's if you handle it any other way, and, this is me getting into a tangent of, like, some of these big for-profit, startups that are now trying to patent all this shit with psilocybin therapy and, whatever. I just feel like you completely lose the value and the whole intention of the mushroom.
Yeah, I mean, we're already seeing big money coming into the space, right? And like, I just feel like once money becomes the driver of any industry, the people get kind of left behind.
Yeah,
People meaning the people who work in the industry, people who I mean are consumers of
Yeah.
products, and that's really unfortunate. Like you said, like how do you patent ancient rituals and experiences that have existed in indigenous communities? Like how do you do that?
right.
Yeah. Well, and also as soon as it becomes a commodity where everyone is approaching this like, oh, instead of getting high tonight, we're just gonna go like shroom. And then
Yeah,
it's like no one is, corners are being cut in production, mass production starts to occur, nothing's organic, you don't know what you're putting in your body. I mean, and especially with psilocybin, it gets really like you really want to know what you're putting in your body. Like you are
yeah, and I
opening
think
yourself up to some serious stuff.
Yeah, and I think, they pick up things,
Yeah.
being in a basement for a couple of months next to a bag of crystal, it's different. So, I know that does happen, and, I respect everyone's way of doing things, but this is something that we believe in, and this is something that we want to do, based on our kind of ethos of how we approach it.
One of the things that I love about you guys so much is that you do take so much care, not just in the product creation, but like how you educate people about the protocols. Like have these beautiful Zoom meetings that, kind of guide people through. And you're not just buying a product, you're not just buying the microdoses. I feel like you are actually joining a community and, you are very much guides in this community. And so, I'm curious, like, what has been the feedback? Oh, I have 1,000 questions on this too, but like, what are people? Are you basically educating newbies to this space, like newbies completely to psychedelic journeying, or are you getting more people who are like experienced journeyers, like, or is it the whole spectrum?
I'd say 90% of people that come to us are either brand new or they haven't tripped since they were in high school. And I'd say 10% are kind of more, experienced psychonauts. Um, so I think like for us, all of this is new, and it's just really important to have conversations with people. It's really important to learn about them, learn about their experience, answer any questions that folks may have. Our goal is to just inspire confidence and be completely transparent. And having these conversations, like it's important to learn from our community. We're always trying to do better, we're always learning. So We're the first to say that we don't know something. Like, there's a lot of questions out there, and people should feel empowered to ask those questions. But if we don't know it, we're going to be very cautious and be the first to say we don't know. But what has been beautiful is we've built a really amazing community of different types of healers. So if there's something that we can't answer, we're always happy to connect to these healers. And I think that's important, is creating this, we call everyone friends of flow state. Having this community of healers and people that are experimenting, and this is all new, this is all learnings, and it's just super important that there's questions being asked, and there's people trying their best to answer them in a conscientious and intentional way.
Can you sort of share with us, like, some of the reasons why people are coming to you for microdosing specifically? Like, what are some of the
Yeah.
situations that you're seeing?
So I think I'm going to break them out into kind of two worlds. The first world, I don't know if it's the right word, but self-help, like people that are trying to do better, trying to explore themselves, trying to, um, they're kind of screaming from the rooftops and really excited about this. The other part, the other world, I'm going to say, are folks that have been in therapy for a long time or have been trying to get off of pharmaceuticals. So
Mhm.
it's really interesting, the kind of approach that people come to us with. The folks that are trying to get off medications, we're not medical experts. We definitely do not give medical advice, but we're always happy to connect folks with, holistic psychiatrists or plant-based medical doctors.
Are there people who are coming to you not really knowing if they should microdose or just go on a full-blown, like, heroic dose, full trip? Because I keep on getting that question a lot from people who are asking me because they know that I've been exploring this space.
Yeah. So, that's kind of one of the reasons we have an initial conversation with people. Um, it depends on your personal experience. Like, if someone who's never done any type of drugs that take you into another dimension, I think jumping into the deep end can be kind of too much.
Mhm.
Folks that are like, "Hey, I really had fun, tripping and doing all these other things in college, but now I'm, coming back as a 40, 50, 60, 70-year-old wanting to kind of reset or, explore something," then I think, jumping into the macrodose is something that's totally feasible because they're familiar with that feeling. I would probably suggest that, start microdose. Well, I should say what we found from working with, I'd say probably 1,300, 1,500 people now after this past month. I would say most people build up confidence with with the microdosing. Like, they're like, oh, I feel pretty good. I want to explore a little bit deeper. And ironically enough, it was these moms that kind of influenced us to create Happy Path, because we were like, no, we just want to stick to microdosing. And these moms were like, but we've been using your product and now we're comfortable with your product and we trust you. So what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to ask my son and for his dealer and get him to use them? And I'm like, oh, mom guilt. Okay. So it's been cool. We've seen people, use our microdosing to lead up to a trip dose or a guided trip or a trip vacation. And then we've also seen people use our microdose to integrate back from any of those different types of trips that I just mentioned.
Oh, wow. I never
Oh,
thought about using it as a way to integrate coming back, which is so
yeah.
duh. I'm totally gonna I'm gonna jump on that train too.
Yeah, seriously, me
Wow.
too. What would be your biggest piece of advice for people who are curious about, like, they haven't necessarily done any psychedelic journey, but they're curious about microdosing, they're curious about journeying. Like, what are the questions that they should be asking
Ooh, I
themselves?
would say always feel empowered to ask questions with whatever group that you're working with. Ask about the supply chain. Where do your products
Mm,
come from? How long have you known the source? Who makes your products? What strains of mushrooms do you use in your microdose? You know, what are their effects? What other ingredients are you putting in your product and why? I think it's really important to ask about protocols. What's your recommended protocol and why? What happens if I have a reaction? How do you ensure my security and privacy? I think that's a very
Mhm.
important question. I think also if you're working with a guide, I mean, one of the things other than money that we're seeing is people coming into the space and having kind of there's all these experts all of a sudden, right?
Mhm.
So it's, you know, we've heard so many stories like, oh yeah, you know, my coach or my shaman started using psychedelics a year ago, and all of a sudden they're an expert. And what we found is there's a lot of kind of dangerous and controversial things that are being said by these people, especially when dealing with coming off of pharmaceuticals. So I think it's just really important to ask, you know, about their experience. Like, when did they first try psychedelics? How long have they worked with psychedelics? Why did they start working in the space? And just kind of listen to what they see and see if it resonates with you. You'll have your gut will give you a good indication if that's a group or a product that you want to work with.
That's really, really good advice. I mean, it feels very much like the Wild West right now
Yeah.
where, yeah, like you're saying, there's so many people and you're seeing it also like for me on Instagram because I hang out there a little bit more,
Yeah.
like so many accounts now that are sort of guiding the conversation. And I love that they're having these conversations, but you're right. There's a lot, it's really difficult to find out who actually is a legit expert, because it feels a little bit like blind leading the blind, but maybe the way that certain people are presenting themselves feels a little bit more like I know my shit, or I know what I'm talking about, and
Honestly,
perhaps
no
they're
one does. No one knows what they're talking about. I
Yeah.
mean, this is all brand new, and it's amazing that people are starting to do research. I think there's like 50 plus universities out there that are starting to do research. I would say, you know, Dr. Fadiman's probably an expert. Paul Stamets is probably an expert, but they've been doing this for years and tens of
Mhm,
decades. I am not an expert. I can definitely talk about trends that we're seeing from feedback. This is all like qualitative stuff. This, you know, my background is in user experience, so I do, you know, feedback, but in a very different type of feedback than double blind studies. Happy to
mhm,
talk about those types of trends, but we are not experts, and we'll be the first to say that, you know, and everybody is a little bit different. So you know, your experience, my experience, Sam, your experience on the same thing can be very, very different. And that's why we're very encouraging for people to establish a baseline and then experiment based on your life. You know, you're going to be your best
mhm.
teacher, your body's the best doctor. So, you know, be in tune with that.
Yeah. I actually really appreciate that perspective.
Yeah.
And it really kind of goes back to, you guys very clearly state that you sit in that gray area between the scientific and the shamanic. And I'm actually curious to pick your brains on your personal stance on this. Like the clinical, like psychotherapy approach to psychedelic therapy versus the shamanic, sort of more ceremonial approach to psychedelic therapy, or psychedelic experiences. How do you see these two sitting together? And is there space for both? And or is there some tension there and maybe necessary tension there between the two?
I think there's definitely a need for both. I think sometimes folks become out of alignment due to physical or chemical reasons, um, environmental reasons. I also think that sometimes folks are out of alignment due to spiritual or cosmic reasons. So, what's been kind of a beautiful experience is, you know, I'm exploring different healing modalities. So, I have both an amazing psychotherapist and also an amazing spirit guide. And I
Mm.
just recently found out that they actually work in tandem, unbeknownst to me. Um, so I think it's just important for people to know and have permission to visit different types of healers and understand for them what resonates with them.
Mm,
So for us, we support all different types of healers. We support holistic psychiatrists, we support psychotherapists, we support Reiki healers, we support spiritual healers. So I think these are tools that can enhance different experiences. And I think there's definitely a need for both. Um, what does kind of suck right now is all of the money that's going into psychedelics are creating clinics and experiences that are only accessible by a very specific wealthy demographic,
mhm.
which I
Yeah.
just is really shitty. Um,
Yeah.
these tools need to be accessible by everyone. And we try to do our part by making sure that we have inventory that's set aside for gifting for any folks that cannot, afford. So that's part of what we believe in. Um, I think it's just kind of ironic and shitty that, all of these medicines came from Black and Brown Indigenous groups.
Mhm.
And currently, there's not awareness of these tools for Black and Brown communities.
Mm.
And I just hope that these advocates that are pushing forward for psychedelic legislation are really being considerate and thoughtful about these issues.
Yeah.
It's such an important point, and, we literally just had a conversation with Robin Devine of Black People Trip, and she helped to educate us on, like, why more Black people aren't using psychedelics, and it's like, I think for some of these, communities in the BIPOC community
Mhm.
specifically, they are or we are, I should say, like, the most, almost in need
Yes,
of these medicines, And so, I think for me, like, where I currently am, like, 'cause I've been sort of, like, going back and forth, and yeah, I think you're totally right, and I agree with you that the 2 need to sit together, like the clinical and the shamanic. But I think, yeah, most importantly, maybe that's really what it's almost like I'm confusing 2 issues because in my mind, I'm like, of course the shamanic's the more important, you know what I mean? Like, 'cause I wanna bring attention so badly back to the indigenous cultures that, essentially are the ones why we have this medicine in the first place.
100%.
And so, yeah, I think it is 2 totally different issues
And
that
I
I'm just,
think
like, inflating in my head.
because we see so many people who are like, I've been on SSRIs for 20 years. I've been on Adderall since I was 6 years old.
Right.
They're trying to look at alternatives because they're like, I've been doing this for 20 years and now I have all these physical symptoms. And the root cause of why I started this has not been resolved.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I think there is importance to have actually like Western medical doctors participate in this because they're more attuned with maybe the chemistry and all of that. So I think just because we have those people that come to us, I see that necessity.
Mhm.
And but definitely, the other group that comes to us for um, kind of exploring themselves. I think that, the guides are really essential in opening up those doorways and
Yeah.
allowing for that safe space. And that's another thing I just wanted to bring up. Like, now that we've been talking to more and more groups, having I'm going to call them an Instagram shaman, is is really dangerous because I've heard of all of these horror stories where some, people are like, I did this trip and all of a sudden I'm driving on the freeway and I'm taken back into that space and I'm almost killed myself,
What?
Oh, man.
So I think there are specific protocols that also need to be in place, having your guides there, opening the portal, definitely closing the
Yeah.
portal, or
Yeah.
learning or having a guide show you and teach you how to close that portals when you're like so um yeah, I just hope people do ask questions, and I hope that people feel empowered, and are not made to feel silly for asking questions because, this is your spirit, this is your vessel, be protective of it and know exactly what you're putting into it and how you're leaving it.
Mm, so
Absolutely.
important. What is one of the biggest takeaways that you have personally received just throughout your whole healing journey, but really like since beginning this work in kind of um, helping people find their way through microdosing and psychedelics?
I would say listen to your gut. Your gut will always lead you down the correct path. Um, I would say, I'm a very stubborn person, so, um, learning to trust that things are supposed to be as they are, even when it's not comfortable or what you expect. So, if something's not working, stop forcing it. Just kind of surrender to it. And I think the greatest lesson that I've learned through all of this, especially during COVID, is it's so important to protect your peace.
Mm,
That's when all the magic happens, right? And what does protect your peace mean? It means really like removing all the situations, the people, the things that really no longer serve you. Because then you allow for that space for all the things that you're trying to manifest or that are waiting you.
yeah.
And I think that everyone should give themselves permission to explore things that they're curious about.
I love that.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for just having this conversation with us. This has been like phenomenally just like opening and deep. And I feel like for myself, you're really showing me new ways of looking at psychedelics, but the like ways to even like I use this word actually very intentionally, like play with the microdosing, because I think I've been doing it perhaps very one-sided in some ways, and I think that there's room for my personal journey to like open up into more of the exploration of it, like yeah, I don't know. I feel like this whole conversation was really one big green light of permission.
Yeah,
I love that.
I love that. Uh, yeah, I mean, this is your experience, and no one can tell you what your experience is going to be. So yes, 100%. Everyone has permission to play. Everyone has permission to experiment, and I think everyone has permission to just explore. We're coming out of COVID. The world stood still. Everything is new. Everything can be redefined. There's no existing structures that you need to bind yourself to because they just don't really exist anymore, right?
Right. Wow. Thank you so much, Flo.
Yeah, this
Oh,
was
This is incredible.
so amazing.
my pleasure.
I just want to mention right now, if there's anybody who is interested in microdosing or interested in learning more about experience flow state, we will have our email in the show notes and you can email us directly.
Thank you, ladies. Love, love, love always talking to you, Elle and Sam. And I can't wait till we get to see each other in person. And I can't wait for you to sit for me, Elle. I'm super excited for that.
Oh man, me too. Me too. Music for Woo New is composed by Adam Miller.